Welcome back to the newsroom. It's time for our daily roundup of the French newspapers, all the top stories there. We've got Kyle G. Brown in the studio with us to go through those. Hi there, Kyle.
Good morning to you.
So we're going to be starting with Syria once again. Plenty of news with that defection of the Prime Minister, of course.
Yeah, Le Figaro says that it was a bad day for the Syrian regime. They say, first of all, there was a bomb blast at the state television station. And then, of course, the big news of the Prime Minister defecting. He is expected to be heading to Qatar, but no one really knows of his whereabouts right now. And it's the highest level official to defect thus far. He went out accusing the regime of genocide, and he said he's going to join the Holy Revolution. And so he's one of just a string of officials, but this far the highest level to this point.
Okay, well, it is, of course, the summer. Things wind down a little here in France, and it gives the French newspapers a chance to do some more investigative reporting. What have you got for us?
That's right. Here we have Le Libération, and they are running an interview with the Minister of Justice, who is talking about the prison population. She says it's vastly overcrowded and dangerous. Just to give you a few figures, more than 65,000 inmates, but there's only room for 57,000. And she says, you know, the dangers come from faulty wiring, danger of fires, and she goes on to point the finger at the previous government, of course, of Nicolas Sarkozy, saying that they had spent a decade, really. He was interior minister before being president, so they had spent a decade with this hardline approach, putting more and more people into prisons, even as they built new ones.
Where do they all go then if there's not enough space for 10,000 of them?
Well, that's a good question. That's a good question. Well, they say that's precisely the problem, because they're doubling up. You know, they're describing some of the conditions in L'Humanité. Actually, they did a close-up of one prison just north of Lyon, and this one talks about how the prisoners there complained about conditions because a recent suicide of a 20-year-old man cast that prison into the spotlight. It's meant to be actually just a detention center, but a lot of the prisoners who have been writing letters to the prison warden and to officials, they've been complaining about a kind of maximum security environment, saying it's being run like a central prison. And the article goes on to say that there's a real problem with recidivism, with offenders reoffending. And they say the prisoners here, they gave their testimony, if you like, to L'Humanité, and they talked about this kind of search approach where they're in kind of lockdown mode, a big proportion of the population, and so there, you know, such things as the USB keys, mobile phones, even yo-yos. They're doing these searches for these kinds of things. The prison board is, you know, on a constant basis.
Not getting rehabilitation, perhaps, while they're inside. Okay, well, moving on to something else outside of prisons. The air isn't as sweet as it used to be. A lot of pollution.
Yeah,
worrying.
On the outside, you know, it's you would think what a time to rejoice in summer, but of course that's when the emissions tend to go up. And over the past decade, it's just been going up and up in France, and that's principally car emissions, especially diesel, and the fine particles from industry. So these are one of the reasons why 12 million people apparently live in France, live in areas where the pollution levels have been going up. And a couple of the effects of this, of course, asthma, people having respiratory problems, and Paris, I'm afraid, is among the worst affected.
Oh, you think of France as quite a healthy country, don't we, with all that countryside and fresh air, but obviously not quite as fresh as we might think.
A lot of drivers, unfortunately,
Exactly.
a lot of cars.
All right, thanks very much, Kyle Brown, with that look at the French newspapers for us here on France 24.